Hello, and welcome to another installment of our Buying for Beginners series with me, Scott The Duke McHugh. And this time we're focusing on the Lords of the Night that are the Vampire Counts. And like all our other Buying for Beginners videos, we'll be focusing on 3 competitive army lists and explaining the best value for money options for the units in each of those lists. Now, thanks to the undead being factions in Age of Sigmar, in sort of varying varieties, the vast majority of the Vampire Count's range is still available from Games Workshop, and they're even releasing new models for them fairly regularly, like the new Direwolves kit, which was released quite recently. The only units you won't be able to get from Games Workshop are the special characters. Now, if you do want some of the special characters, there are options. From Manfred, Isabella, and Vlad from Castine, you have the Warhammer Underworld's Diachasm the Crimson Court box, which comes with 4 vampires, 3 of which are perfect substitutes for these characters. For the other 3 named characters, so that's Conrad von Carstein, Heinrich Kemmler, and Krell, you will have to resort to a bit of converting or looking for third-party models. Now on to the main event. I'm going to go through some competitive lists and take you through exactly what you need to buy for each unit or character and give you the best cost I could find for each of them. The first list is going to be 1,500 points, the second will be 2,000, and the final one will be a Triple Crown Wargaming event standard 2,500 point list. In each one, I'll try to keep as many of the units and characters the same, so you can slowly build up your Vampire Counts force and not end up with units sitting in a case gathering dust by the end of it. The 1,500 point list I'm going to go through today consists of a Strigoi Ghoul King on the lore of vampires, with Quickblood, the Book of Arkhan, and the Dragonbane gem. Next up, I have a level 2 Necromancer, also on the lore of vampires, with a Dispel scroll. And to round off the characters, I have a Vampire, who is a level 1 wizard on the lore of vampires, armed with heavy armour, a shield, the Sword of Might, Talisman of Endurance, and the Red Fury Vampiric Power. On to core then, and I've got a unit of 20 Crypt Ghouls with a Ghast unit champion, 2 units of 5 Direwolves, and a unit of 30 zombies with Musician and Standard Bearer. Next up is a unit of 6 Crypt Horrors, and finally a Terrorgheist, and that comes out at 1,499 points. So, what are your best value options for this list? Normally we'd start off with the characters and work our way through the list from there. However, because vampire counts exist in various forms in the Age of Sigmar game, Games Workshop produce a couple of really good value start collecting boxes for them. So we're going to go straight into those. The best start collecting box for this first list is going to be the Flesh Eater Corpse box. Now this comes with 10 Crypt Ghouls, 3 Crypt Horrors, and a Strigoi on Terrorgheist, which can be built as a separate Strigoi on foot and unridden Terrorgheist, for just £55 direct from Games Workshop. Being a start collecting box, these are relatively easy to find online from third parties for even cheaper, and I managed to find it from Boards and Swords for just £49.50. Now that gives you a big chunk of the list in just one box. We do still need more Crypt Ghouls and Crypt Horrors for this list, so you could decide to get 2 of these boxes, have all of the Ghouls and Horrors you'd need for this list, and have a spare Terrorgheist kit. While we haven't used one in this list, that will definitely come in handy for the later lists. You could decide not to get the second start collecting box and get a box of 10 Crypt Ghouls for £22.50 from Boards and Swords and 3 Crypt Horrors for £27, again from Boards and Swords. However, you'd be spending the same amount of money buying them separately or all in the start collecting box, so there really is no reason not to just get the second start collecting box. Moving on to the heroes, and first up is a Necromancer, and GW still sells the same model they did during 8th edition. He's just £10, although unlike most 8th edition Hangover models, isn't direct only, and so he is available from third parties, and we found him for just £7.95. The final hero is the Vampire. Now, GW only sell a single unnamed vampire model for £18.50 in the Soulblight Gravelords range. However, they do sell AOS named characters in the same range, which make perfect vampires if you prefer them, like Lady Annika, the Thirsting Blade, and Kritza, the Rat Prince. Both of these are slightly more expensive at £21 from Games Workshop, so we're going to stick with a standard vampire for this. But for a couple of pounds extra, if you do prefer the other models, it won't cost you that much more. That standard vampire is £16.65 from Boards and Swords, so again another way to save a little bit of money. So that's the characters done for the first list, so I'm going to move on to the remaining units, and first up is going to be the Direwolves. As I said earlier, actually, these guys recently had some new models released for them, which look lovely. And they come in a box of 10, which is perfect, because that's how many we need, for £31.50 from Games Workshop Direct, or £28.35 from a third party like Boards and Swords. The final unit in this list is the 30 Zombies. Just like the Direwolves, these guys also had some new models released in the form of the Deadwalker Zombies. Now, these come in a box of 20, so you will need to pick up 2 boxes for this list. They don't come with an obvious musician or standard bearer, but the box does have a couple of upright pitchforks and shovels, which could easily be converted into a standard. The musician is a little harder to make, but a simple hand swap to one holding some sort of horn or drum would work really well. Alternatively, there are a lot of shouting faces in the kit, so you could say that the infernal scream of the undead counts as a musician. As for the cost, these boxes are £34.50 each from Games Workshop, but a little cheaper at £31 5p from Boards and Swords. As I said, you will need 2 of them for this list, so that brings the cost of the unit to £62.10. With the amazing savings from the start collecting boxes, that brings the total for the first list to just £214.05. And for that, you get a very competitive 1500 point army that's a great stepping stone to build on your Vampire Count's force. You do have a spare Ghoul King, a spare Terrorgheist, and 10 zombies, so if you wanted to try something a little bit different, you do have some options there. Also, the additional zombies are really helpful for either raising new units or increasing the size of the unit you already have, if you don't want to change the list around at all. Next up, I'm going to look at a 2000 point list. Now, this one contains a level 4 Vampire Lord this time, and he's on the lore of vampires with heavy armour, Red Fury, the Ogre Blade, Talisman of Endurance, the other Trickster Shard, and the Enchanted Shield. For heroes, I've got a single level 2 Necromancer on the lore of vampires with a Dispel scroll. For core, I've got that same unit of 20 Crypt Ghouls with the champion, the same 2 units of 5 Direwolves, and a unit of 30 zombies, except this time they don't have a musician, just the standard bearer. I also have a unit of 30 Skeleton Warriors with full command to round out that core. In special, I have the same unit of 6 Crypt Horrors, except this time they have a champion, and I also have a unit of 5 Hex Wraiths. Then finally in rare, I have 2 Terrorgheists, and that list comes out to 1,999 points. There is very little you need to purchase to increase the first list to 2,000 points. You already have all the Crypt Ghouls, the Direwolves, the Zombies, the Crypt Horrors, and the 2 Terrorgheists if you bought both start collecting boxes. And I mean, really, why wouldn't you? It's the same price and you just get a Terrorgheist for free. You also have both characters from the first list, as you can use the Vampire Hero from list 1 as the Vampire Lord in this list. All you need to buy for this list are the Skeletons and that unit of Hex Wraiths. The Skeletons are another unit which has recently got some new models in the form of the Death Rattle Skeletons. Now, like the Zombies, these now come in a box of 20, and these guys are £36.50, so a little bit more expensive than the Zombies. They do come with a banner and the model you can use as a champion, but unfortunately they don't come with a musician either. So again, you're going to need to get a little creative with a horn or some other sort of instrument. They're also quite big models, so they can be difficult to rank up. It's not impossible, but we would recommend ranking them up before gluing them to their bases, so you know they fit, and mark the bottom of the bases so you know the order that they need to go in. Once again, you can get these slightly cheaper from Boards and Swords for £32.85, bringing the cost of the unit to £65.70. The only other addition in this list were the Hex Wraiths. Now, these come in a box of 5 for £25. These are unfortunately direct only, one of the very few vampire units actually which are, but you will struggle to find these cheaper from anywhere else, and we certainly couldn't when we looked. So that is all you'll need to grow that 1500 point list we looked at earlier to this 2000 point list. And even with the Hex Wraiths being direct only, that will still bring the total for this list to £304.75, assuming you get those skeletons from a third party. You will have a couple of Ghoul Kings spare, 10 zombies and 10 skeletons, so you do have some options to add a bit of variety to your games without having to purchase any more models. Now though, we are on to the final list. And this one consists of a level 4 Master Necromancer this time, again on the lore of vampires with the Book of Arkhan, a level 1 Vampire Lord on the lore of vampires again with heavy armour, the Enchanted Shield, Ogre Blade, Talisman of Endurance, Red Fury, and Aura of Dark Majesty. Onto the heroes, and there's a single level 2 Necromancer on the Lore of Vampires with a Dispel scroll. For core, I've got a larger unit of 30 Crypt Ghouls this time, again with a champion, those same 2 units of 5 Direwolves, and the same unit of Skeletons with full command, except this time they have the Banner of Swiftness too. I've also got a slightly smaller unit of 21 Zombies with Musician and Standard Bearer. In special, I've got 6 Crypt Horrors again this time. I've got 2 units of 5 Hex Wraiths, and I've also got 3 Vargheists. And in rare, I've got those same 2 Terrorgheists, and that comes out at exactly 2,500 points. On the face of it, it looks like there's a bit more to buy to make this 2,000 point list into the 2,500 point list. But actually, most of the additions come from the same start collecting box we've already got 2 of. You get the 10 additional Ghouls and the 3 Vargheists, as they can be built from the same kit as those Crypt Horrors. You do also get a Strigoi Ghoul King and a Terrorgheist, which you don't need. However, as we saw before, these bits are completely free in the box, so there is no point in not getting it. You can also either build the Strigoi on Terrorgheist, or you can build it as a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon instead, giving you some options for some different lists. As I said before, that start collecting box is £49.50 from Boards and Swords. The only other additions for this list are a Master Necromancer and some Hex Wraiths. The Hex Wraiths are £25 and direct only from Games Workshop. And we've already picked up one Necromancer for the previous list, so another one in the same kit is £7.95, and that will give us the Master Necromancer. That's all of the additions for this list done, and that brings the total price up to £387.20. That may seem quite expensive, but thanks to that third start collecting box, you actually have quite a lot of options. You have 2 on-foot Strigoi Ghoul Kings, 10 spare Skeletons, 19 spare Zombies, which, even if you don't change your list at all, are really useful for raising. And that big spare model, though, is that final Terrorgheist, which, as I said, can also be built as a Vampire Lord on a Zombie Dragon. Or you could just have a Strigoi mounted on a third Terrorgheist. And that really gives you a lot of options for a lot of very different list builds from that same collection of models. A small note of caution though is bases. You will need to source these separately, as all of the models are supplied with incorrect base sizes or shapes for Warhammer Fantasy. I found the best Games Workshop equivalent bases are from Tiny Worlds Wargaming. They all come with a slot on the underside of the base to make magnetising them really simple. And they also sell magnets and movement trays, so you can get everything you need in one place. At $3.99 for 20mm square bases, or $14.99 for 120mm square bases, both either with or without slots, they're really competitively priced too. Some of the units we've used in these lists come on large bases, namely the Terrorgheists, which aren't typically sold by any third party, so you will have to sort of build your own from smaller bases. The easiest way to do this is to get 3 chariot-sized bases, which are 50 by 100mm, and glue them together along their long edges. Once they're glued, you can fill the gaps with a bit of green stuff to make a nice flat surface for basing and to add a bit more strength to the joints. If you were to go down that route with chariot bases, and if you buy them from Tiny Worlds Wargaming, then you would need 100 20mm squares. You actually need a few less, but they only sell them in bags of 20. 10 40mm squares. Again, you actually only need 9, but they come in bags of 5. And 6 50 by 100mm chariot bases for those Terrorgheists. All those bases would come to £38.93, bringing the grand total up to £426.13. Now, that doesn't include basing all of the extra skeletons, zombies, characters, or Terrorgheist/Zombie Dragon, so basing those would come to about £15 extra. This definitely isn't the only way to build and run a competitive Vampire Counts list, but I think this is a very solid core of an army. You have probably the strongest build for the Vampire Lord himself, a good selection of the core units, and the workhorses that are those 2 Terrorgheists. As for what to add next, I would probably go for more Crypt Horrors. 6 is good, but units of 8 are surprisingly more survivable, much more than you'd imagine from just 2 models. And particularly if you can get 2 units of them around that sort of size. The truth is, though, there really are very few bad choices in the Vampire Counts army book, and anything you like the look of, you can find a place for in a competitive list. If you want to know what we would do with your favourite unit from the book, then head over to that Vampire Counts deep dive to get an idea, or drop us an email or a message on any of our social medias. I hope today's snippet has helped you understand what I believe are the best choices for a competitive Vampire Counts army, and hopefully it's shown you little ways to save a bit of money too. If you've got any suggestions you think we missed, or if you want to know what we would use for certain units that are no longer available from Games Workshop for any army, head over to any of our socials at Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, or email us directly, all of the links to which are below, and we'll do our best to help you out. Join us next time for another instalment in our Buying for Beginner series, where we'll look at one of the other armies of the Warhammer world, or head back to the Night of the Realm Mustering Ground, where you can find links to all of our exclusive content.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?